Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Manga Mike here. Sorry that today's video is late. I actually posted one. It got a copyright strike, so I put it down and I'm redoing it. This isn't going to be as exciting as the one I originally had planned, but I'm still going to do it anyways. So I hope you enjoy. So, today's video, I was about to say episode, today's video is about writing shonen style comics, and in particular, writing death and grief within those. So, why am I doing a bit of a study on Cowboy Bebop instead of doing a study on shonen style comics? Now, my reasoning for that is because Cowboy Bebop does a fantastic job in episode 8 of showing grief and death. And I don't think that shonen comics as a whole do a very good job at kind of exemplifying that for the demographic that it is trying to reach out to. I think that it's treated almost as something that is not permanent, and what it does is it creates a difficulty in the stakes that you're trying to create within your comic. So when that happens, it's okay to branch out and go to other genres of stuff in order to get the information that you need. And that's why I think episode 8 of Cowboy Bebop is a great case study for this. So let's dive into it. If you don't want to be spoiled, please get off the video. That's your only warning. So, in Cowboy Bebop's episode 8, we get to meet this character named Roko. And I think that this character and the writing of this character is really well done, because when you have a character that is going to die and you want your audience to have an emotional reaction to that, that character has to be one that we can connect with. And how better to do it than have your main character connect with that character. So there's like this big portion of this particular episode that is just about the bond between Roko and Spike. And we kind of see Roko as this kind of like punkish kid that, he's obviously involved in something. He has this like little package. He's being kind of mean to the person at the front desk. And then he has like a particular interest in Spike, and we don't really know why. Then the very next scene, he tries to stab Spike, right? And we see Spike kind of like spin him around, and he falls on the ground, and he's like, how'd you even do that? And Spike's like, whatever, I don't like pickpockets, and he starts to walk away. And the guy wants Spike to train him. So it's kind of confusing for us, like, why would Spike train this dude? You just tried to stab him. And we kind of, we get this glimpse, more of a glimpse at the Roko's actual personality. He's kind of goofy, he's playful, and he actually kind of pesters Spike enough to the point where Spike's like, all right, I'll just do it and get you out of my hair. And so we have this beautiful scene between him and Spike where Spike is trying to show him how to be fluid like water as you're fighting, and use the other person's aggression and stiffness against them in order to kind of incapacitate them in the moment. And he's not really listening to Spike, and he's like, I don't get it, like, you can't, how am I gonna knock somebody out if I'm not rigid and strong? So he's like, alright, come at me. And he does, and he tries to stab Spike again, and Spike uses the same kind of technique, and he's really fluid and kind of flips Roko around, and he ends up like face up on the grass, right? And he's like, how did you just do that? And they go through it again, and he says, you have to be fluid. Like, when you're really stiff, you're not able to really react, so you're actually in more danger if you're stiff than you would be if you were loose. So that's a really great scene. We see these two bonding, and it makes us care about Roko as a character even more. So then we flash forward just a little bit, just a couple of minutes later, and we're seeing that after Roko has like thrust this package into Spike's hands, that he's running away from somebody, right? He's running away from a group of people. And Spike goes back to the ship with Jet, and they're sitting down, and Jet's like, why don't we try to find some bounties while we're here, get some pocket change? And he goes and he puts up the bounty board, and as they're having the conversation, Roko's name pops up onto the bounty board with the mobsters. And so Spike starts to piece things together, and he undoes the package, and he sees that it's a flower. It's a particular flower that's used to help with the illness that's particular to Venus. So they find out that that flower is worth a whole bunch of money, and Spike goes and investigates. So Spike ends up finding Stella, the sister of Rocco, and while he's finding her, he starts to figure out, and we start to figure out more about Rocco. Like, why is he involved with these mobsters and what's going on? Well, we find out that Rocco's actually this person that is going and willing to do anything for his sister because his sister is ill. She's blind because of the sickness that's particular to Venus. And she needs that flower that Spike has. So Spike is kind of figuring this all out as we are, and I think that this is why this episode is so beautiful. It shows how real relationships work. There's a connection, which was them out in the field, kind of, master and disciple, trying to figure out how to fight. And then there's a rupture. He's got a bounty on his head, and that bounty, it makes me think twice about this particular person. I need to go do some investigation. And then there's a reconnect, which is the most important part of all relationships. And that's something that you should think about in your writing. When relationships are just great all the way through, it doesn't feel earned. This one felt kind of earned in a way, even though it was only in a 20-minute episode. And that says something. So having this new knowledge, Spike now goes and meets with Rocco at the place that Rocco said to meet him at. And then there's again this kind of rupture and reconnect. Rocco finds out that Spike's a bounty hunter, and so he pulls his gun on him, and thinking to himself, all is lost, I need to get this stuff back so I can get to my sister and help her with her eyesight. And what ends up happening is Spike brings up his sister in the moment, and then Rocco is like, oh god, no, I actually can trust him. So it was a very quick rupture and reconnect, but it solidified their relationship. It solidified that Rocco could trust Spike. So he throws down his gun and tells Spike he needs to get away. And then the scene ensues where the mobsters start to attack. And finally, we have the second to last scene that I will mention that's really important, which is the kind of cementing that happened between the relationship between Spike and Rocco. And what I mean by that is Rocco is able to utilize the technique that Spike taught him, and it kind of showed Spike that, my disciple is starting to become a master of this technique himself. And he has this great moment where he does a thumbs up to Rocco, and then Rocco immediately gets shot. So that is how Rocco ends up dying, and it's kind of gut-wrenching because Spike has actually formed a human relationship with somebody, and he cares about the kid, and until we do as well, right? And that's that's the most important part, I think, of writing a death scene, is that we have to care about the character in one way or another. Either we care enough that we don't want them to die, or we care enough that we do want them to die, right? If you're in between, it's not going to have the impact that it should. So now, the final scene that is really, really important is this kind of deconstruction of what death can look like from different perspectives. So we get Spike's perspective and we get Stella's perspective. So Spike goes to Stella after taking care of a whole bunch of stuff so she can get them the kind of medical care that she needs in order to get her vision back. And then Spike has to be the bearer of bad news as well. And Stella she has a feeling that something has happened to Rocco but isn't sure. So she asks first if he's in jail. Spike doesn't really answer. I think he says no. And then she said, well, what happened? And then Spike says nothing. And then she puts her hand up to his face because she's still blind at the time and says, he's dead, isn't he? And then Spike doesn't really answer. And she says, you can leave, right? And then Spike, on his way out, he basically kind of shows Stella or tells Stella that, however you thought of him is how he really was, and even better, he was a great kid kind of deal. And so we get these two different perceptions of what death looks like for two different people. So I guess perspectives. But for Spike, there was a bond. It wasn't nearly as in-depth as the bond that Stella and Rocco have, but from his point of view, he actually was able to kind of see Rocco die, right? But he wasn't able to really say goodbye because he thought he was going to be able to get him the help that he needed. But Stella, she got the exact opposite. For her, death was sudden and it was horrible, right? And it was really gut-wrenching for her in a different way. And that's what death is in real life. Death isn't this like, you're dying and right before you actually die, you get to say all the things that you ever wanted to say in your lifetime to one person that means the most to you, and then you pass away. That never happens. That's a very like glorified way of dying. That's not how that works. Death is just cruel, and it takes people away that we care about quickly. And that's not something that you need to hide from teenagers. That's something that's real and that they should understand. That's why I don't like the way that death is written overall in shonen style comics. And it's just an unrealistic idea of what death looks like. I'm not saying all of them, I'm just saying a good portion of them, right? You can think about like Ichigo gets revived a couple of times. I don't know how many times Goku died and came back to life. In Naruto, some people in the Pain arc, a whole slew of people died, and then a whole slew of them ended up coming back to life, right? It makes it so that death is not something that is going to have this heavy impact on a story, and that's just not life, right? Obviously, you don't have to listen to anything I just said. Obviously, you can have death and things like that and maybe have it be something that's not super permanent in your comic, but you need to think about how that looks, right? You need to think about what you're actually going to do with it. And doing studies like this can help you. It can help you write it in a different way, in a way that's more meaningful. So anyways, I do hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that it was still fun. Again, I wish I could have shown everybody the video that I created before, because I thought that one was done a little bit better than this one is. Just a talking head, maybe with some stuff in the background. But regardless, I want you to know that I worked hard, and I appreciate you watching all the way to the end. I do hope that it was super helpful for you. Alright, I'm Manga Mike, and I'm out.